Donald Trump is the biggest freak in the world, and subsequently, he is a freak magnet. And one of the biggest freaks surrounding him, of course, is smoky eye sociopath J.D. Vance.
Death, death, death.
President Trump has made several false claims about violence against white farmers in South Africa in a tense meeting with the country's president. He played this video on a big screen in the Oval Office, saying it showed burial sites for over 1,000 white farmers. But it doesn't show burial sites at all.
Can we all agree that this is one of the most embarrassing fucking things that we've ever watched? I have a message directly for Donald Trump, and I really hope he sees this. Honestly, everybody needs to try to do everything that they possibly can to make this go as viral as possible, so somehow he sees this video. There is genocide occurring all across the entire world, and somehow you seem to be focused on white farmers that aren't even from this country. The most contradicting fucking part about all of that, though, is that you have the audacity to call that shit a genocide, but yet you can't address any of the actual genocide that people don't believe is occurring in Gaza. You could have even talked about the Congo, since you want to bring up shit happening in Africa, but yet you didn't. And then you allow them to resettle in the US as refugees? Is this shit a fucking joke?
Everything that Donald Trump said about this alleged genocide in South Africa is not happening, but he needed to prove his point, give a reason why he brought these people in. The bottom line is it's about racism. It's about performance. It's about stupid shit. That's what Donald Trump does.
If you saw the White House meeting yesterday with the South African president, you saw Trump pull out two things, which were obviously in an attempt to justify, this season of America's the most racist country on planet Earth. He showed a video where there were crosses like lining an interstate, like a road, and supposedly those were all like the burial sites for, many killed white South Africans. And then he also showed a picture of like a burial. All right, well, it has come out now that those two pieces were not as he presented them. So let me tell you what they were, so you can push back against the bullshit talking narrative of the Maga Cultists.
Yesterday we witnessed this.
Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried.
No, this image doesn't show white farmers being buried in South Africa. In fact, the image shows Red Cross workers in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Just another lie by President Trump.
Why don't we bring up the problems that are occurring in our country that seem to have a lot of similarities to that of what happened to the white farmers? Shit, we could talk about sundown towns all fucking day. But yet that shit doesn't seem to ever be addressed. I wonder why. Then the fact that it's been reported that those murders that have occurred in South Africa, right, account for less than 1% of 27,000 annual murders nationwide. How does that equate to a genocide? At least 3,131 Palestinians have been killed and over 8,600 have been injured since the end of the 2-month ceasefire, which a special little group just so happened to violate, since March. And of course, that's not the first time. I wonder why. See, if people knew a little more about people like Jonathan Pollard, right, their eyes would really be open. Shit, if you want, go look into the Pegasus spyware for me real quick. All it takes is just a little bit of digging. But yet, here you are, allowing somebody else that you look up to and you idolize to form an opinion for you. You don't search for answers outside of that little box of comfortability that you can find yourself within inside of this infrastructural society that, let's be honest, doesn't really do anything for us to begin with. And of course, you'll have your average person that's like, oh, well, if you don't like it here, why don't you just move out of the country then? Dude, that is funny as fuck. I love when people say that shit.
Donald Trump seems to be on a mission to have ever increasingly embarrassing meetings in the Oval Office. Most recently, he hosted the president of South Africa, who he looked in the face and told, "Your country has a white genocide." And the president was like, well, respectfully, no, that's not happening. And Donald Trump's like, yes, it is. And then he pulled out evidence, only that evidence has all been debunked. Like, he showed a video of all of these little white crosses along a roadway. And Donald Trump said, these are burial sites right here. And then he said, each one of these white things you see is a cross. There's approximately 1,000 of them. They're all white farmers, the family of white farmers. Those people are all killed, Trump added. Yeah, so first of all, apparently people are just buried on top of each other along a roadway, by his logic. No, those are not burial sites, nor do they represent dead farmers, and you don't have to take my word for it. You can take the word of the man who put up those crosses. There were 2 farmers who were killed, and as part of a protest to that, they went along this roadway and put white crosses up that were then removed after the protest. They didn't represent individual people. It was just about these 2 people. Then Donald Trump showed a video where a person in a red beret repeatedly chants, "Kill the boer, kill the farmer," and speaks about taking land without compensation. That person is Julius Malema, who founded the small but radical party Economic Freedom Fighters after being expelled from the African National Congress, of which the president is a member. And after playing that video, the president explained to Donald Trump that does not represent the policies of this government. South Africa's opposition agricultural minister also said many parties had worked to keep extremists out of government. That guy and his group are extremists. They are not in power. And then Donald Trump pulled out a photo and he's like, "These are dead white people who were killed in the genocide." The picture he's showing is from the Congo, because Africa is a continent that has many countries within it. It wasn't in South Africa that happened. It was in the Congo. And in response, the president of South Africa, who had to sit there and be berated by a man who confidently declared things that were categorically false and used evidence that was inaccurate and not true, his only response he could really say was, "I'm sorry I don't have a plane to give you." Because apparently this administration, if you do something like gift them a plane, they forgive all kinds of terrible things. But today, my feed is full of conservative creators who all made the same video where they look at the camera and have music playing and they nod as text on the screen reads, "Donald Trump confronting the president of South Africa about the white genocide is exactly what I voted for." Is it? You voted for theatrics based on conspiracy theories that are false, using fake information? That's what you voted for? Meanwhile, while you're celebrating this big W, more than 7 million could lose Medicaid in House mega bill approved Thursday. Yeah, they're going to take away Medicaid for a ton of people, not to mention all the food assistance programs that are being shut down that will affect children, will affect veterans, will affect seniors. And you're too busy looking over here as they snap their fingers and go, "White genocide, look what's happening in South Africa, we got to help." And you're like, "Oh, that's terrible," as they literally rob basic shit from you, as they use your tax dollars to import white immigrants and simultaneously use your tax dollars to deport brown immigrants. And I'm all for people who need protection being allowed to come here and seek protection. But meanwhile, he's revoked the protection, the asylum status of thousands of Venezuelans, for example, who face actual real threats, while giving it to people who aren't facing the threats that he's made up. That's this administration.
Okay, so I just need to make sure that you guys have heard about this, because if you saw the White House meeting yesterday with the South African president, you saw Trump pull out 2 things, which were obviously in an attempt to justify, this season of America's the most racist country on planet Earth. He showed a video where there were crosses like lining an interstate, like a road, and supposedly those were all like the burial sites for, many killed white South Africans. And then he also showed a picture of like a burial. All right, well, it has come out now that those 2 pieces were not as he presented them. So let me tell you what they were, so you can push back against the bullshit talking narrative of the Maga Cultists. Because these aren't just mistakes. These are deliberate attempts to manipulate the narrative to justify this importing of, fresh white blood into America. Still with those crosses that were lining that road. He's saying like, oh, these are fresh burial sites and these are all white farmers who are being killed. No. Those crosses were from a 2020 protest, as in they were put there to make a point, not because they're burial sites. And then Google went back and looked, and in 2023, that very same road, no crosses. You know why? Because it was just a protest. So our president is so dumb that he actually believes that someone doing a protest, which is basically a form of art, okay, that those were fresh burial sites. And he's saying that that's white genocide. Okay. Gramps, take a nap. And when you even look at this claim, it doesn't even make sense, okay? In 2024, there were 44 killings in the farming community as a whole, and only 8 of them were farmers. 8. That isn't genocide. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to leave me some fire emojis down in the comments. Back to the video. Now let's deal with that picture that he held up, that it looked like a burial. So that image, it wasn't even in South Africa. BBC hunted it down and then Reuters verified it. That was a February 2025 clip filmed in Goma, the Democratic Republic of Congo, tied to a report about women's deaths in the area. Nothing to do with farmers and nothing to do with South Africa. So I just wanted to push back against that because I've heard all the right-wing puppets talking and using those videos and those images. They're not even related, guys. That has nothing to do with what is going on. They want to import people for reasons that I'm sure I don't have to explain to you. When you get rid of everybody that's brown and then you start bringing in people who are, well, you do the math. Y'all tell me why he's doing it.
Donald Trump had been getting some pushback about bringing these white South Africans in to this country. He was making claims of genocide against white people in South Africa. So he brings this president in and he immediately goes after him. He has a stack of conspiracy theories on paper and hands them to him and wants to show a video and all this stuff. Everything that Donald Trump said about this alleged genocide in South Africa is not happening. But he needed to prove his point, give a reason why he brought these people in. The bottom line is it's about racism. It's about performance. It's about stupid shit. That's what Donald Trump does. So once again, he embarrasses the entire country by bringing in a world leader. He ambushes him, gets unhinged. And then when the press start asking him questions like about the plane or whatever, he loses his shit on them too. Here's a guy that doesn't have the temperament to be a president. Fuck, he doesn't have the temperament to be a cashier at a grocery store. We're getting tired of seeing these things. It's an embarrassment. And how many more embarrassments do we have to go through before the Republicans say, enough?